And welcome everybody to another episode of the Pulse of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Sung, and I am joined by Ron Caniff, Alfredo Artiaga, and Chris Early, who apparently had to walk away for a second. That's why he's off camera, but he'll be back. I promise you that. So we are here as the Miami Dolphins have made their initial 53-man roster, and all the things that did not happen or did happen, we are going to go ahead and talk about that. Gentlemen, how are we feeling this evening?
I'm feeling like what words can I use? I'm feeling like they realized what they had on offense and they acted accordingly.
Okay, that's fair. We'll probably talk about the aforementioned situation that you're referring to there, and
mixed bag for me, but
yeah. Well, we'll get into
it's
all
not
of
over
that.
yet either. Like we're not the 53-man roster is not complete yet.
No, it's not complete. But
Week
this
one
is
not
exactly
even the Jonathan Taylor saga is over. Like that's ongoing until Halloween.
Yeah, you're right. It'll be ongoing, especially once the 4 weeks is up. That he'll be on PUP or IR. I guess in this case IR.
It's the PUP list, so
he's on
I
PUP.
think it's PUP during preseason, doesn't it?
It's still the PUP
IR?
list.
It's still PUP.
In the first 4 weeks.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
so is Nick Needham for the Dolphins.
Yep.
So we're gonna get into all that. Duke, how are you today?
Okay.
Doing good?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
There we go. Really quick, somebody said, can we please praise the heavens for Tanner Connor being cut?
I mean, I did not have strong emotions about that man to begin with, so I don't know what
all I know is I told you, was it 2 weeks ago, Louis, that Eli Apple was going to overtake him for that spot. And this is when people were hot and heavy on Noah. Hot and heavy.
I did not say I was hot and heavy. I just said that he was
I didn't say
apparently
you were.
Good now.
I said people were saying he was good, and I kept telling you, no, he's not. He's fooling you. They'll figure it out. Hopefully not the hard way. They didn't figure it out the hard way. Didn't take long for them to realize Noah is Noah, and they moved on.
Well, we're going to talk about pretty much all the things that we can get to today. So before that, really quick, though, just want to go ahead and mention that, as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. And this show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, such as the live Dak Prescott square that is available for you to choose right now. They also have special Taco Tuesday promos, which are one of them is still live as of right now that you can take advantage of. It's a discounted prop in baseball. And of course, there are the Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. The Flex Friday is also where I ended up winning $500 just last week. So that way I can actually take a chance and win some big time cash. With offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you're any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Get the promo code 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. All right, so we've got comments coming in already, just going absolutely ballistic. One of them is, I know a guy, Lewis. It's not me, believe it or not. It's not, as this is not me, just in YouTube form. If JT gets traded, being Jonathan Taylor, does he still remain on the PUP list? The answer to that question, my friend, is yes. Jonathan Taylor, even if the Dolphins traded for him now, he would still have to be waiting for a good 4 weeks before he was allowed to actually hit the Dolphins field. So that's a big problem in my book anyway. tonight, but I have already been consistent with this whole thing that I don't think the Dolphins need Jonathan Taylor, and maybe the Dolphins realize they don't need to give up the farm to get Jonathan Taylor. I've been consistent with this, that in spite of the fact that they've been looking at all these running backs, they've looked at Josh Jacobs, or at least they've rumored to be looking at Josh Jacobs. It was alleged that they were looking at Saquon Barkley. We know for a fact that they made an offer to Dalvin Cook, and now we know for a fact that they made an offer for Jonathan Taylor. Yes, they're looking at all these really good running backs. But the one thing that has been consistent throughout this whole thing is that they have never, ever given up the farm to go and get one of these guys, which just tells me that this is another one of those situations where the Dolphins are obviously open to exploring upgrades, which is perfectly fine with me. You want to look for an upgrade, that works for me. But looking for an upgrade and dropping everything to get a guy is a very different thing. If the Rams, I suspect that if the Rams had demanded a first-round pick and then some for Jalen Ramsey would not be a Miami Dolphin. I firmly believe that. If the Kansas City Chiefs, when we picked up Tyreek Hill, that was a shocker for everybody. That was not on anybody's radar. So I just feel like that the Dolphins, they make a lot of trades, yeah, but it's always on the terms that they want. So Jonathan Taylor, they weren't willing to give up everything to get their hands on him. So, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
I wanted to throw in another comment here and answer the question. Do you guys think that money we saved today is going to Wilkins? The answer is no. They have made Wilkins the offer they're going to make him, and it sounds to me like they made him an extremely fair offer, and it's up to him to take it or get tagged in next season. That's as simple as that.
Yeah, and the money that they opened up today was for Jonathan Taylor. It's as simple as that. Like, that money is just cap space for today. That's what they opened up, and they will use some of it to get players that they may need if they take some injuries in the regular season, and the rest they're going to roll over. But that money that they opened up today was for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, because now they've cut Feeney or traded Feeney and put Eichenberg at backup center. I can't imagine that's optimal. That guy's lucky he's even on the roster. They need tight ends, right? They cut Saubert and they thought he was going to be their tight end too. So they have probably some work to do there, since doesn't look like they're going to get the Jonathan Taylor situation done. At least if it happens, it's later on. They have some improvements they can make. They have some moves they can make, but they kind of ran out of time because they were thinking they could possibly get the Jonathan Taylor thing done.
Yeah, although I will say that what they did today by converting Cedric Wilson's contract, the trade for Kelvin Joseph and Noah Benigni, they saved $800,000 on that trade, and then of course the Feeney trade, they save another about $1 million. Although the savings for next year is like $300,000, so it's like almost nothing.
Yeah, but it's outweighed by the dead cap.
Yeah, but the money that they opened up this year was actually almost identical to the cap charge for Jonathan Taylor for this season. So all those moves were essentially made for that trade that didn't get consummated. As far as tight end, I'm glad that they're only keeping 2 tight ends, because this team should never be in 12 personnel. That's just dumb. That's just bad. That's just bad self-scouting. That's bad football. This should be a 21 personnel team and an 11 personnel team. That's what they're good at. That's what they're great at. Last year, they were a bad 12 personnel team, and they don't
even
have the
at running
to be in 12 personnel. Yeah,
even rushing the ball, they're better rushing. They did better rushing out of 11 than they did out of 12, which seems kind of odd, but I think it's just the way the defenses have to play them when they're in 11. Probably, is what allows that to happen. Man, we have so many comments. I don't even know where. I'm not used to this many comments. I don't even know where to start. Let's see.
Good night, FinsUp from Franklin Stubbs. Are you leaving? Or are you just saying it's a good evening?
Yeah, good.
There's a greeting version of good night. Duke, we haven't heard anything from you yet. What caught your eye with this whole situation? Like, whatever you like. There's plenty of topics. Choose one.
Well, they kept only 2 tight ends, which is kind of surprising, but there's going to be 3 spots open back up tomorrow with Jalen Ramsey, Elijah Campbell, and Robert Jones likely going to IR. So I would assume they're going to bring Tyler Kroft back. He was at practice today. So I'll give him at least 3 tight ends. But I will say I was surprised that Julian Hill was the guy that they kept, mainly just because they cut so many guys. But that was the biggest surprise was that room. Everything else I kind of thought was, for the most part, nothing really was that off guard. I'm glad they kept Chris Brooks. I thought he played well in the preseason. He deserved a spot. So I'm happy for him. Hopefully he'll make it past waivers. And because I know that's kind of a double-edged sword. Some of these guys think they made it, and then waiver wires come along, and the Dolphins pick up a couple people or whatever, and then you're the guy that's out. So hopefully he'll survive that, and if so, I look forward to seeing what he could possibly do this season.
So one of the other things that actually happened here, and this is something that I was very curious about. I had been going back and forth a little bit with Scooter Magruder, who is a big-time Cowboys personality on Twitter and YouTube as well. The Dolphins, when they traded for Noah Igbenogany, they basically did a 1-for-1, one corner for another. We got back Kelvin Joseph in trade. I see Franklin Stubbs here in the chat saying you'll like the Noah trade. I don't know yet. I don't know anything about Kelvin Joseph. If any of you have any insight, I'm very interested to hear about it. From what Scooter told me, it's like he doesn't really know if Kelvin Joseph is good or not. He was never healthy enough to know, I guess.
I saw a Cowboys fan weigh in on X and said it was like trading Hitler for Stalin. I thought that was pretty hilarious. Like, take my trash for your trash kind of situation.
The tweet that I saw was mid for mid.
Mid for mid. My question, I think, on Joseph would be, and I don't know anything about the guy, can he play special teams? Because we know Noah provided nothing in regards to special teams. So if he can provide
which was a problem.
Yeah.
Which was a problem. Kelvin Joseph is an ace special teamer. He's fast, great tackler, really, really good tackler. His problem came last year in coverage. He actually had a decent 2021 in coverage. He allowed an 82.7 quarterback rating in his vicinity. This past year, do you guys want to guess what he allowed in quarterback rating?
119. No, I'm not sure.
No. Anybody else? Any other?
I'm guessing it's a lower number than we think. How about 77.3?
If he allowed 77.3, then we absolutely robbed the Cowboys, and he should probably start opposite of X.
I don't know. I was expecting a trick question.
So it's not 77.3. He allowed a 147 quarterback rating.
Okay, so
isn't that like almost perfect?
Like twice.
It's almost perfect. So he had an awful season in coverage last year. Here's the good news, okay? He played at LSU and Kentucky. He played some safety at LSU. He's played some safety in the pros. Not many snaps. We're talking about a handful of snaps. He can play some safety. So there's some versatility there. But he is Justin Bethel's replacement because Justin Bethel he's also gone, by the way, but he's going to be injury settled maybe because he has a bad injury. He has a brace on his knee, and he didn't look good to me. But he's a really good special teamer, and he's a really good tackler, so he can play in the box. So I think he'll help the team. He'll do what Noah Igbenogany couldn't do. Noah Igbenogany had such a great start to camp and just consistently faded throughout camp to the point where he ended up having 2 bad games in a row. And he had a really bad, I would say, 8 days in a row in camp as he lost his job to Eli Apple. And it was consistent. So, he got off to a good start. His problem is he just loses technique, and it's weird. And you actually see it on that phantom catch by Calvin Ridley. By the way, I still don't think he caught that thing. Okay, but you could see it. Like, why isn't he not flipping his hips at that point? Okay, that is a technique error. The reason that ball got caught, although it didn't get caught, but let's say it did. The reason it did get caught, and the reason they called it a catch, is because your cornerback blew the coverage. He was there perfect. He was right there in coverage, okay? In what was essentially like a match zone, so he has to match man on that side. He could have intercepted that ball. All he has to do is just flip his hips like he's been taught a million times, how he's been taught how to play that defense a million times, and he just didn't do it. And that's something that consistently happens with him. He always loses his technique, and in this system, that's going to piss off somebody like Ronaldo Hill and Sam Madison, and more importantly, Vic Fangio. And then that's why you have what happened today.
So now, with that in mind, here's something that I was actually surprised about. I was maybe not surprised. Surprised is the wrong word. I guess disappointed. And it's very weird. I put it in our little 5 Reasons Discord server that for some weird reason, I tweeted out questioning if the Dolphins are shaking through the couch to look for loose change, why are they not just cutting Keon Crossan for a cool $3.1 million and literally $0 in dead savings? And Keon Crossan liked that tweet. Does he not run his own Twitter account? Is he just liking anything with his name in it? Even if it's not positive, I don't know. But it's like if Kelvin Joseph is such a special teams ace, and we obviously still have River Craycraft on special teams as well, and there are other guys who can play special teams. If we're so strapped for cash, why is Keon Crossan still here? He doesn't offer anything in the secondary. He's just a special team guy.
We were strapped for cash to pull off the Jonathan Taylor trade, but they didn't pull off the Jonathan Taylor trade. So now they're no longer strapped.
So they're going to keep a worthless player who, yes, I know you mentioned something about the bizarre designation that I guess we will learn more about tomorrow during press conferences and stuff. But it just feels like now we're going to pay him $3.1 million to do nothing. Less than nothing.
Well, we don't know. He practiced today, by the way. So
which makes it even weirder that he's on IR and we're going to pay him.
But we will learn. We will learn what's going on tomorrow with Keon Crossan. That's the thing. We will learn what's going on tomorrow with Keon Crossan. And I can't wait to see what this designation is because it's a mystery designation. Kind of like that mystery team that was in on Jonathan Taylor that doesn't exist.
So just more stuff for us to look at here. Matthias saying Crossan's hurt. Yeah, I know Crossan's hurt, but again, it's like if he practiced and he participated in practice, then you could have cut him and we would not have been on the hook for anything. Like, he's practicing. We don't have to do this injury settlement thing. We can just say hasta la bye-bye and we don't have to deal with this mess. But whatever, that's fine. If you really want to keep somebody, I'd keep Justin Bethel and just wait until he's healthy to play if we're going to keep Keon Crossan around. But whatever, that's my opinion on the whole thing. Franklin Stubbs is asking, do you think we should reach out to Eric Rowe, who, by the way, recently got cut, and Deion Jones? Personally, with Eric Rowe, I know what he can offer. He's solid if you need backup in the secondary. I know that he's at least good at covering tight ends, but could he play in Vic Fangio's scheme? I don't know.
Yeah, he could play in Vic Fangio's scheme, but the book on him is that he's getting slower by the second. So, he could be a he's done situation. Like, that could be the issue with Eric Rowe. Who was the other guy? Deion Jones? Nah, he's also done. Deion Jones is donezo.
I'm just interested to see what tomorrow brings with the waiver claims. I'm not sure when you put in waiver. Is it tomorrow at 4? Or is it tomorrow at noon? Do we know?
No, it's tomorrow at 4. But
is when they're awarded.
No. It's the following day. I know that. Well, I know that the practice squad is the following day, Thursday morning, and then waivers awarded, I believe, is at 4:00 tomorrow.
Yeah, that's gonna be the tell all about what they're thinking where, because man, I keep harping on this. I've been harping on it for 4 months. I guess I'm just going to spend another day harping on it and then see what they do and leave it alone. One of the biggest issues, and what did I say was that, Lewis, you and I talked, it might have even been just on a Fins Nation. The number one problem this team had last year of all problems was when Tua didn't play, we were just terrible on offense. So number one, getting an offense that backups could run wasn't so player specific was important, but getting better quarterback play behind Tua. And do you guys feel like we did that? I wonder, would they possibly consider, picking up Zappy or something?
That was a shocker. Bailey Zappy getting cut by the Patriots.
Yeah, I just feel like that we didn't find 100% the answer there. Maybe they feel more comfortable than me, but I don't feel.
I will say this.
I will
say this about Bailey Zappy. Last year when he played against the Packers, like the way they talked about him, it seemed like as long as he didn't throw up on himself, he was going to be fine. But he's at least safe. He's not going to go out there and blow himself up like a certain third-string quarterback that we have. So yeah, man, I'd think about it. Like I think it's one of those situations where you sit down and you actually talk about it. You actually hash it out, and you think, yeah, and you ask, is this guy? Can this guy step in? Can this guy be a backup on our team?
Yeah.
But is he great now? He's not great either.
The OnlyFins moderator disagrees with you there, Alf.
Yeah, but then so does Skylar Thompson, and then I'm still not sold on Mike White, and I know he didn't really get.
It's Hitler and Stalin all over again.
It's Hitler and Stalin all over again. A trade off. I just feel like, Alf, do you feel like we have the answer to the quarterbacks behind? You feel comfortable there with the QBs behind Tua?
Well, I will say this. Everybody keeps telling me that Mike White's a gamer. Let's hope that we don't even have to find out. How about that?
Yeah, I'd love that, but that's really not with Tua. Unfortunately, it's not super realistic. But if you do find out, man, I don't know. Guess hopefully we don't find out the hard way. Chris, what are your thoughts there on that, on the backup QB situation, and could you see any kind of move happening?
I don't know if this guy's on the radar, but he has played in the Shanahan-style system. That's Colt McCoy. He was not available in the offseason, and now he is. Would he be better than Mike White or obviously Skylar Thompson? So
Skylar, yes. Mike White, I don't know.
Well, and the question there also, too, is money. You have to consider what you'd have to pay him. If you could get him, for dirt cheap, sure. But yeah, that's the name that I saw. So I think everybody else that's been released at this point is probably not going to necessarily be an upgrade. Maybe a guy like Zappe over Thompson, but I don't think there's anybody, in my opinion, outside of maybe McCoy that is available that would be better than Mike White.
I never thought about the Colt McCoy thing. I'd always seen him around. I'd always seen his name being floated, but I'd never seen him as even a backup possibility for the Dolphins. But yeah, if he's played in the Shanahan system and he can kind of give himself a little bit of transition period to become the Dolphins backup, he's definitely a veteran presence. He's not somebody who's fresh to the NFL like Skylar is. So he's somebody that he's been around a good long time. He at least knows how the game works. So I wouldn't be upset about that.
And he is he wasn't available because he probably would have started for Arizona, but they're obviously trying hard to go 0-17, so they let him go. So which is kind of a surprise. So yeah, why not take a chance? It's like, as long as you don't have to pay him like $5 million or something.
So
it's kind of embarrassing. I'll address the comment in a second, Ron, but I just wanted to say it's kind of embarrassing for the Cardinals how many times they've had to reset in the past few years. They drafted Josh Rosen in the first round, and they literally reset the next year with Kyler Murray. Now it looks like they're going to have to try to reset again because Kyler Murray sucks. So
are we Dolphins fans commenting from like 2010 to 2020?
Yes.
Or no,
you know what?
I should say more from 2002 to 2010. I feel like we reset every single year, but
we're good now, Ron. We're allowed to do this stuff. All that is in the past.
We're good now, Ron. We haven't won a playoff game in 22 years, but we're good now, Ron.
We're good.
Most surprising cut, y'all's opinion. I'll be honest with you. I understand that there's some people like Simon. He was big on, Chosen's gone. He's not going to make it. I am still surprised that Chosen didn't make it. I thought he was that speedster on the outside in case Waddle and or Hill couldn't play, so that you don't have to completely change the offense like we've been talking about a lot. Just it's a year of trying to make sure that if a guy goes down, you don't have to completely change everything because one or two people went out. I wonder if there's somebody else, on their radar, perhaps, to replace them. I'm not sure, but I wonder.
Yeah, you could kind of see like the warts showing up for Chosen as time went on. But he did have really good chemistry with Tua in practice. But as time went on, you could tell, this guy wasn't long for this team.
I'm pretty sure that Aaron was kidding there, Franklin.
Yeah. That's funny though. Let's watch them argue in the comments.
Yeah, right.
That'll be the show.
Johnny Be Good. Are the NFL going to investigate the Cardinals for tanking? Everyone gave Miami crap. No, they're not going to investigate.
No, they're not, because they're not Miami.
They're not Miami.
Yeah,
they won't care.
I heard today somebody in the press room said, was Steve Keim drunk the entire time in Arizona? And I felt like saying, yes, like that's what they established when he said he went to rehab. Like, yes, he was drunk the entire time. He
got drunk off his ass in Mexico. No,
that was somebody else.
Got left there or something.
I think that was somebody else. I think that was the offensive line coach.
Oh, okay. I thought that was him. That's funny. Maybe that team just has an issue in general, man. But I'm just excited to see what happens tomorrow. With the JT thing, obviously we've seen them flirt, as you mentioned, Lewis. They flirted with a bunch of running backs, but that's clearly probably not over unless something changes in the beginning of the season, because JT could still be available, like you said, Alf. And another guy a team that could maybe have like a kind of collapse and decide, okay, we're sitting our starter and we're rolling with the guy we drafted this year, and let's go ahead and look for some trades. And that's, kind of keep your eye on what's going on in Tennessee with Derrick Henry later in the season too. I think that's a maybe a slight possibility. I mean, hell, they flirted with almost every other really good to elite running back that could be possibly maybe available, right? Every other one.
They were
why
rumored
not, right?
to be interested in Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
too,
they've been rumored. Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying that even though we didn't get JT on this go around, and we're clearly probably going into the season, right, with the running backs we have, which I've been saying are really good backs. Just keep your eye on it, because at some point, maybe week 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, kind of keep your eyes that maybe they start to kind of the wandering eye again, look for another running back. We'll see. I think it's possible for sure, depending on how the start of the season goes. Clearly, they're committed to running the ball. I think they showed that from preseason, showing that in practice, and their affinity for other elite running backs onto other teams. Would you agree, Alf, with me on that?
On what?
On just that it's the running back thing probably for Miami may not be over. So kind of keep your eyes out on them trying to
like they've been
for
on
somebody else. I mean, they've been on every single damn running back.
Yeah.
Why would they just suddenly stop now?
But I think that they have there's a really, really good question in the chat, by the way. But I think they have a number. And when Jonathan Taylor became available, they're like, okay, let's up the number a little bit. And then say, you're dealing with a maniac. Okay. So imagine negotiating with that guy. You're actually cutting cap space to open up the cap space for the player. Then they essentially at the last hour just say, nah, we're done. But somebody in the chat was asking, now that Noah is gone, who's the new Dolphin player that fans can't stand? This is a trait that Dolphin fans are really, really good at.
Johnny Be Good already answered as far as I'm concerned.
Eichenberg.
Dolphin fans look at their roster and they say, okay, who do we hate?
Yeah.
Okay. And then when they're gone, they're like, okay, now who do we hate now?
Well, we hate Eichenberg now, but he may not even play at the beginning.
He's a backup offensive lineman. Like, nobody gives a crap.
Halfway through the second quarter, that guy is going to be Austin Jackson. That's who it's going to be. You think? Oh, yeah.
Probably.
It's going to be Austin Jackson halfway through the second quarter when he's getting owned there in L.A. Yeah, it's going to be Austin Jackson.
Isn't it Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa right now?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be Austin Jackson. And if Teron Armstead can't play and Lamb can't handle it, it's going to be Kendall Lamb too. It'll be those guys. It'll be some
they'll give some grace
line
to Kendall
adjacent
Lamb
somehow. Who will be opposite? Oh, sorry. Okay, got that. I'm reading it. Who will be opposite
Eli
Xavier Howard? That would be Eli Apple. Yes.
And Kaderko, who will be the slot guy.
Yeah. Now, in the case where they're in quote unquote base defense, where they only have 2 cornerbacks, which will be rare, it'll be Kohu and X. But most of the time, they're going to have 3 cornerbacks. So it means Eli's the boundary and Kohu's at the nickel.
Yes.
So Kohu's usually not going to leave the field to say he's like pretty
much.
But they'll be in 3 cornerbacks. I don't know. 85% of the time. I'm not sure what that number is. It's a high
It depends
number,
on what teams are going to do, and depends on who they play. Like they play the Chargers week 1, so they're going to be in nickel most of that game. But they play the Patriots week 2. Patriots are a 12 personnel team, so you might see the Dolphins, downsize a little bit and stay in base for more.
Big nickel, more safety.
Yeah, they'll play a big nickel, which means a third safety.
Which is interesting because we're kind of like maybe a little with injury now, maybe a little thin at safety. I wonder if perhaps they look for an opportunity there as well.
I don't think they're thin to play a game. They're thin for an entire football season. They're thin, but to play a game, they're going to go into the game with Holland, Brandon Jones, Deshaun Elliott, and Verone McKinley. That's more than enough. You know what I mean? That's 4 safeties. So they have the single high guy in McKinley. They have a hash guy and box guy in Deshaun Elliott. They have the star in Holland, and they have Brandon Jones, who could play big nickel and could play in the box. So they're fine to play a game, but
think they're good.
They could probably use a guy, But remember, they're adding Kelvin Joseph. Kelvin Joseph also can play safety.
And he's actually not on this list that we have here for the team yet, so they haven't actually updated that far.
Caius asked, "How can we be a 12 personnel team?" I think Alf was referring to New England, not us.
Yes, I'm talking about New England. New England's a 12 personnel team. Miami is a 21 personnel, 11 personnel team. They're not a 12 personnel team. I actually started the show by saying that's what I liked about what they did as far as the cuts, is that I would have gotten rid of all the tight ends and just kept one, because that's all they should use is just one.
I like this. Vic Fangio owns Justin Herbert when he coached the Broncos. That's good to hear. That's good.
All we have to do is make sure the game's close in the fourth quarter, and
he'll throw a pick.
Let him go to work.
Are you still going to try to get your fourth quarter interception Justin Herbert bets in?
I might see if that prop is out, because last year they pulled it. Because I guess they figured out, man, there's these assholes mostly in Miami that keep betting this thing. So let's pull it and let's not give it to them anymore.
So one of the things that was actually the most surprising to me, and this is based on reports that I've been hearing from Alf and them, is that Deshaun Hand was doing really, really well, and they decided to cut him just straight up because of his injury. I'm guessing, Duke, you were saying that you didn't feel like the backup defensive tackles were even on the roster yet, and I told you Brandon Peely was going to make it. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this whole defensive tackle thing.
Well, he's safe right now. It depends on it depends on the waiver claims or who they decide to pick up. If you watched him in preseason for a one technique, he was getting moved too far off the ball. There was a play that I saw where Michael Dieter was playing center and completely moved him off the play. This was a guy that could not get on the field for the Dolphins last year. In the playoff game, they started Lester Cotton, who had been on the team a few days or he was on the practice squad, I think, but called up to the roster, and he started over the guy that was your backup interior offensive lineman. And that same guy is moving your new nose tackle out of the way. So, I mean, he might make it, but they're going to need some depth there. But again, I think Hand might be one of those guys, because he is a veteran, like with Croft and some of these others, that you cut them now. They don't have to go through waivers. And then when your guys start hitting IR, then you may be signing back. So he may or may not be gone. That's just one of those. We have to clear some room right now. Let's wait until the dust settles, and then we can bring him back. But I'm going to stick with my two guys that I've said previously. I think they should bring back Ndamukong Suh, and I think they should bring in Linval Joseph. That was the duo that went to Philadelphia last year, where Vic Fangio was a consultant. They signed for fairly cheap, if I recall, and that gives you some serious interior depth. And you're not asking them to play, any more than 20, 25 snaps a game at most. So they need some depth there. The defense really does need some depth. I think the linebacker position, the off-ball guys, I think they're set. We kind of knew the 4 that were going to be there. They only have 3 edge linebackers, unless you want to consider Emmanuel Ogbah a linebacker, but he's listed on the team side as a defensive end.
Yeah, he's a defensive
He can stand up, but right now you have 3 stand-up rush linebackers. So I saw, and I think I posted on the Discord the screenshot of the tweet
And I
from
tweeted
Melvin
it out.
Ingram.
And I tweeted it
So
out.
I don't know where
Ingram.
Melvin Ingram is going, but he would be a good addition to add. I think he could fit kind of the same role that he did last year, coming off the bench. So I don't know. They need some depth in both of those positions, but yeah, man, it's just if one of our main guys, is not there, it's going to look like that Jacksonville game, and teams are just going to run all over us.
Yeah, for sure. I know somebody asked in here, is Wilkins, what's the status? Well, it sounded to me from his presser today like he's made his point, and he'll be there week 1, ready to roll. That's what it sounds like to me, for sure. I keep a couple of comments in here about Nick Bosa to Finn. I have heard nothing about that. I don't know. It's Twitter.
He's gonna get like
Twitter
30 million a year. So
yeah, that's like Twitter crap to me. I don't know what that's about. Why would they trade?
And by the way,
anyways?
I could take a few of these questions, like Matthias was saying that the Patriots only have 2 tight ends on the roster. I'm pretty sure that they'll bring up another one, but the 2 tight ends are Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. One makes like 10, and the other one makes like $7 million or whatever. They're both going to be on the field. Thus, 12 personnel.
Well, Gesicki's not going to block. He's a big receiver, so moving on from that.
That's their problem. Okay.
Not ours.
Not
yeah, you know what?
anymore.
Here's one. Bring back Ingram. You know,
we've been talking about that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Ingram.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the
Definitely.
2 guys that Earl was talking about, Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh. Linval Joseph, now that they kept Brandon Peely, I think Linval Joseph is kind of one-dimensional in that regard. So they've already made their decision and I don't think you're going to have more than 2 zero techs. So I would say that Linval Joseph is probably not it, but Akeem Hicks, who can play, he's a guy who can play 3 tech and 0 tech. I think Akeem Hicks makes a ton of sense. And Ndamukong Suh, I've just heard some horror stories from that building. Guy was evidently did not make a lot of friends in that building, and he's kind of overbearing. I don't know if you want to bring that into this locker room. You know?
I mean, at this point in his career, he's old. He's getting up there. He's not the same guy he was before. He's just an assassin for hire. So at that point, I feel like he can't. I think at this point he would know he can't afford to really be the same like. I'm the leader of this defense kind of guy. He kind of has to understand at this point he's in his late 30s. He's reaching a point where he can't open his mouth too much if he wants to be able to keep making a paycheck.
Yeah, Cap for Life says Hicks, perhaps. Yeah, that guy, Akeem Hicks. Like he's the one that makes the most sense, and also played under Vic Fangio. You know, but yeah, Peely. Like they've decided on Brandon Peely. They sent Austin Clark out to scout him. They give him a big signing bonus. Like they've decided that's their zero behind Raekwon Davis.
Is Brandon Peely's problem that he's just not strong enough, or what?
No, his problem is that his college tape was terrible, but his he was actually pretty good in the preseason. I don't get what PFF is looking at. Like I tried to look, PFF sometimes they'll grade, especially on the interior, especially on the offensive line and on the defensive line. Like they're grading based on what they see the guy do, and they're not paying attention to what defense is doing. Sometimes, like, look, I'll give you an example. Brandon Peely had a play against the Jaguars, and somebody had posted about it and was like, look, he got completely blown up on this play, got pushed over like 2 gaps. And I was pointing out, like, look, first of all, this guy weighs 340 pounds. If you pay attention, at the snap, he's moving over a gap to occupy the guard, because he was in 3 tech, and now he's occupying the guard, and then he's in a natural slant. Like, that's the defensive call. So he's moving over 2 gaps instead of 1, which was a mistake because he needed to just read the backside. But if you look at what, some of these guys are doing on the defensive end, especially like if you watch Zach Sealer, if you watch Christian Wilkins, you see that they're actually essentially almost perfect in how they read their gaps and how they play the defense. Brandon Peely, if somebody's grading Brandon Peely, they don't know who the hell Brandon Peely is. And all they see is that he's getting displaced. When he's not getting displaced, he's actually playing the defense. What they have to do is actually look at the guys around them, what they're doing. And if they're almost all in unison, then that's what they're actually doing. So his problem was he was a bad college player. I just didn't like his tape. But remember I said it when they signed him, I was like, I don't get it. I don't think he's very good. Austin Clark disagrees with me. Austin Clark is the pro, and evidently they like him. And to be honest with you, he's had a good camp and a good preseason. So he deserves the role that he's in, which is essentially playing like 10 snaps a game. So it's not a big deal. But they do lack depth on the defensive line.
Another one that got cut that surprised me, and if you guys mentioned it, because we've thrown so many names around, was Ryan Hayes. I wonder if he'll make it past waivers. I'm sure they want to put him on the practice squad.
I reported that Elijah Higgins and Ryan Hayes, they want to bring back both to the practice squad.
I think Higgins has a good shot, but Hayes, it always concerns me. Number one, he's put some really good tape on during the preseason, but the biggest thing is, that he was probably eyeballed, a Michigan guy. He was probably eyeballed by many. I'm sure there was a lot of teams as it was getting towards the end of the draft, and we drafted him in the 7th round, that were hoping to probably put him on the practice squad. And now, some of those scouts are going to go through real quick, like they probably already have, as they've seen him cut. They liked his college tape, and now they're going to like his NFL tape. And I know we always overvalue our guys, so I'm only picking 1 or 2, though. I'm not going nuts and saying it's going to be 10 guys claimed. I don't know if they're going to make it through. And on a team that has struggled so mightily to draft and develop talent on the offensive line, I am shocked they would take the risk. I think I'm going to go back to it. We've had the same conversation with Miami, the offensive line. It's not just who they draft that isn't good. It's who they don't draft that was good or should have been drafted. And in this case, did they miss an evaluation and take a risk here they shouldn't? Alf, what do you think?
Yeah, and we're going to find out in a couple of days, right? Like Thursday morning, we're going to see the list of the guys that get brought back to the practice squad. And I'm hoping Ryan Hayes is in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll bring him to the practice squad. Question is, tomorrow at 4:00, do we see that he got claimed somewhere? That's my biggest concern with him. I mean, I understand Keon Smith had a really, really, really good preseason, and I'm excited for that. It's nice to see. That's good because we got Armstead, we got Lamb, you know what I mean, and then we have Smith, and then we have Austin Jackson. I guess you can't keep 5 tackles. I suppose that's a lot. Maybe.
Well, they actually do have
a quote-unquote numbers game.
Yeah, but remember that they have the versatility that they actually do have 5 tackles. Isaiah Wynn can play both tackle spots. So, they actually do have the versatility at tackle. They're actually kind of deep at tackle.
That sounds
guard is where the problem's at right now.
Can a team that's starting Austin Jackson really claim they're deep at tackle? I'm just saying.
Hey, we shall
just
see.
Throwing it out there. I guess
I
guess we'll find out. I know that some of you guys, I know Lewis, you're a little bit more hefty on Austin Jackson than I am. I'm not saying you're in love with the guy, but I'm ready to go out and take him to prom. I'm just saying I know you've been a bit more of a believer that he could be much better than what we've seen than I am, but I guess we'll find out. We'll find out for sure. Yeah, the Dolphins were doing such weird things, and I know we all think it's likely because of that JT trade. Now that JT trade hadn't happened, I mean, do they got to go out and try and find a backup center? Do they, you know what I mean? Like, what are some of the things they're going to do now to kind of recoup a bit with a few of the things they did? I mean, some of the things you don't have to recoup, right? The Cedric Wilson thing, I almost feel like that really made sense because I almost wonder if it was like, hey, your choices are you can play on this new contract we're offering you, or we're just going to cut you. I mean, I wonder if that was the option. That's usually how it works in some of these situations. But
yeah, but I don't think they were going to eat that money. I think, especially once you looked at the reality of what happened with Robbie Chosen, which was he was a guy that kept playing progressively worse in the actual games, and then had that bad moment against the Jaguars. I'm beginning to think that Cedric Wilson actually played his way on, and he can block. Like you watched them all preseason when they were actually running the ball really well. He's on all that tape, all those big runs. Like he shows up making a key block, and every once in a while when you watch Robbie Chosen, what you see is a lack of effort and actually, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what to call it. It's an aversion to actually making contact. Like it's not that he can't block. It's that he doesn't want to block.
Hey, have you noticed too that any player, and I don't have a big list for you, Alf, you were at practice, all the practices, so you could probably say this better than me. If there was a player that even had a hint of quote unquote lack of effort or taking off plays, they got cut. Like they were not having it.
Look what happened with Malik Reed. Look what happened with Malik Reed.
They were not having Malik Reed and Chosen, and I don't know. I'm sure if you really probably thought about it for a while, you could maybe come up with another name or two, but they were not having it. No way. That's good. That's what I want to see. I mean, that's what we need to see.
And people ask me like, but that's stupid. You should have kept Malik Reed. He played in the system. He played well in the system before. Yeah, but what he did in camp is something that gets you cut. Because when he's constantly sitting out reps, okay, and finding one ailment after another that evidently nobody can diagnose, okay, then what you're doing is that you're taxing your depth and you're taxing your starters. You're making Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb play more reps than they have to, and then you're actually moving Van Ginkel to the outside to take reps away from what you wanted to try him at, which was as a fill linebacker. So now you're actually messing with the defense because you're sitting out because evidently, I don't know, maybe too hot or something, but they cut him. And I'm actually glad that they did. Like, they don't need him. Like, that guy's like he was zero effort. Like, if you watch Melvin Ingram last year in practice, it was a different thing. Okay. You saw the effort. You saw why he's a good player. Okay. Malik Reed just never showed it.
Is Melvin Ingram still available? Is he
he's still out there. Yep.
Oh, man, go get him. Holy crap. I mean, come on. I mean, put him on the roster. The guy was defensive player of the month for us last year, and was it September, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
and then he did steadily fade.
I get it, but
he was getting tired because he's old.
Guy at moments. Like, there are so many moments where he can be an impact guy, and he would be asked to do less now than he was last year. Yeah. We have a little bit more talent there. And I just say, man, just go get. I'm really curious to see what. I'd love to know, like, be behind the scenes there to know how much input Fangio has or had, in some of these moves on defense. I'm sure in acquiring guys, yes, but on some of these cuts, it's moving so fast and furious. I'd just be curious how much input he had. I'm sure quite a bit. With some of these moves, and if they're kind of going to him and say, hey, I'm looking at Chris Greer goes, I'm looking at these guys here and here. What are your thoughts? You played with this guy played for you, that guy played for you. I mean, shoot, man, Fangio's been in a lot of different places. He's been in so many spots that I'm sure he has a lot of information on a lot of guys that are out there. Wouldn't you think, Chris?
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to bring up a comment that Alf made in a show back in the spring, I believe, where you talked about how the Patriots, when they were dominating the league in the early 2000s, that you had Belichick as the kind of the head coach of the defense, and you had McDaniels or whoever as the head coach of the offense. And you said now the Dolphins are kind of in a similar position where McDaniel is he's the head coach of the offense, and now you've got kind of an alpha head coach of the defense. And so if you look at what you were talking about with the high effort, and this goes back to what Lewis said about Brandon Peely in the chat, was that you can just tell that the defense is going to take on the personality of their coach. And if you listen to any of his press conference, he's just a no nonsense kind of guy. He said, we have some positions that we like and some we don't. We have some depth in places and some we don't. And so he's kind of like, just that kind of no nonsense approach. And so, like you're saying, Malik Reed's not showing effort. He's cut, even though he's played he knows the system. He knows the calls or whatever. A guy like Brandon Peely is a high effort guy. He's going to make the team because of that. Play with that kind of edge like that. So, that, ultimately, I think, regardless of what happens with Jonathan Taylor, we're getting Jalen Ramsey back. I think Vic Fangio is going to be the biggest pickup this team got this entire season. And I think they're going to, the defense, if you watch them in the past couple of years, it's just like they played, I don't want to say soft. I don't think that's the right word. They just played, I don't know. I don't have the word for it. But I think now what you're going to see is you're going to see a tougher defense that plays with an edge that they haven't had before. And I'm looking forward to that. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that Fangio has a lot of input in this because he'll go back in the meeting rooms and say, "Yeah, this guy's not doing what we're asking him to do. He's sitting out, or he's not playing at the level we want him to play at. I don't want him on my team." And they're saying, "Okay, well, he's gone."
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering if maybe that's how it went. Was Fangio kind of like, "Nah, this ain't it." But do they want to go? I mean, that was a certain quote unquote role I think they were looking to have on the team. Felt like kind of last year's Ingram role. And do they look to go replace that? I wonder. That's kind of a food for thought there, especially now that they didn't get JT. You know, do they decide, hey, you know what, let's go throw a couple, or do they say, you know, let's save this money because, as I said earlier, later on in the season we may want to go ahead and still upgrade that running back room. I mean, I never seen I won't say that Miami struck out. Miami could have made a deal for a lot of these guys if they wanted to. If they wanted Dalvin Cook to be a Dolphin, he could be a Dolphin, right? Honestly, if they wanted JT to be a Dolphin, they could have made it happen. They just had a price and they stuck to it, and that's how you should. But, yeah, it's just it's real interesting. It's exciting. It's nerve-wracking. Right? It's everything because it's so different. The offense is going to look a little different this year, maybe a lot different. The defense is going to look completely different. Man, it's so hard to know. We know we have a lot of talent. Just have to see it all put together and how quickly it happens. And who knows? Mr. Lewis, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I hadn't heard from you for a while.
Well, I go ahead and I let you guys banter back and forth. You guys are the real experts here. So
I'm the real expert. We're in trouble.
Okay, fine. You and Duke and Alf are the
Duke and Alf are the real experts, and we just talk out our butt to try and sound good.
Yeah,
Repeat what they say, but say it in different words to make it sound like we said it. I saw this too. Von Miller out for the Miami game. That's a help. Although when he played last year, was it week 2? Like he had like one pressure.
It was week 3.
Yeah, he had like one pressure the entire game. You know what I mean? And I don't even remember who the heck even was our right tackle in that game. I don't even remember. I think Austin Jackson was already hurt.
I think it was Brandon Shell.
Yeah, exactly. And Von Miller.
Are you sure? Or was it Greg Little?
Yeah, you're right.
No, you're right.
It was Greg Little. And he had one pressure the entire game towards the back of the end zone. And I think we ended up making a good. Oh yeah, that was on. I think that was on the play that Tua threw to Waddle. That up and out the little that he threw there that went for like 45 yards or something like that. But I am glad. I mean, Von Miller's a really good player. I don't want to take that for granted. And not glad he's hurt. Just better for Miami that he's not there for sure.
And one of the things that I wanted to briefly touch on is because I remember, Ron, that we were doing an episode of Fins Nation, and we were talking about whether or not the orange jersey for Liam Eichenberg at center meant anything. Well, apparently it wasn't a joke, because if they felt comfortable enough to trade Dan Feeney and cut Alama Ulave, who was the only other actual center on the team, as bad as he was, I guess they felt comfortable enough to say, you know what, we're happy with Liam Eichenberg as the backup center, whatever they say. Alf, you were, now that training camp is over and all that's over and preseason's over, what were we seeing with Liam Eichenberg at center? Was there something there, or was this just we need a body, throw him in there?
Never. You never saw him at center. That's what you saw.
So you didn't.
But he was that. Remember,
in
OTAs, he was the starting center in OTAs. No, all throughout.
That's right. OTAs. Because
Connor Williams was out. Remember,
he held out. He was apparently taking off, not practicing his snaps.
Yeah. So what they got from Liam Eichenberg was OTAs, and he was actually pretty good at center for the entirety of the OTAs. But in camp for the preseason,
No, for
he
camp and
never- he-
preseason, yeah. But the reason I
He
brought
never
up
played a single snap at center.
no, that I knew that, but what I meant was that now we don't have to necessarily keep secrets anymore. It's all over and done with.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's the
so-
backup. Well, Mike McDaniel said today he's the backup center right now.
Yeah,
And
so,
then
but-
Robert Jones is an emergency center, and then Lester Cotton also can play center.
So you have to tell me, like, come on, Alf, they're gonna go find another backup center. I don't even know if Ike is on this team come 4:00 tomorrow, or come 4:00 the next day.
He'll
when
be
they have
on
to
the
make
team,
cuts on players.
Ron. Don't
here's
get
the thing,
everybody's
though.
hopes
Here's the
up.
thing.
He'll be on the team.
Probably the only reason he's on the team now is because of Jones's injury. Number one, number two, you're going to tell me that they feel comfortable that Eichenberg is the backup center when they gave him 0 snaps the entire training camp and preseason. 0 at center. 0. And they put him at left guard and he got knocked down to like 3rd string. No, I don't care what Mike McDaniel said. I'm glad he said that. That's what he's supposed to say, because right now you're worried about the guys on the team. You're not going to stand up there and say, oh yeah, Eichenberg sucked. We're definitely going to find somebody to replace him. Of course he's going to say that. No, I'll bet whatever you want to put it on the table right now. $50
Chad's
says
not here.
Eichenberg is not the backup center. By tomorrow or the next day, there will be another guy they're bringing on. So come hell or high water, they are gonna consider the backup center. There's no way Eichenberg's a backup center when he had 0 snaps the entire training camp and preseason. And
Duke, you want to take Ron's money?
No, but I was going to say, for what it's worth, the depth chart on the team site has Eichenberg in first string. So,
for guard.
Yeah,
Well,
let me pull that
yeah.
up real quick. Let me pull that up.
We
real
know what
quick.
that's worth.
I said for what it's worth, but it's there.
Yeah, that doesn't mean
Yeah,
anything. They got Eric Saubert still on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I saw that too.
Julian Hill is 6th string, even though he's the second only other tight end on the roster.
Yeah, I'd say that depth chart on the Miami Dolphins website is a work in progress. The real depth chart won't even be released until Wednesday before the game, before week 1.
Yes.
That's when the real depth chart comes out. So
when the injury report
I don't
comes out.
believe it for a second. I'm interested when in the next couple of days I'll get on Fins Nation and we'll finish this conversation when we see what that looks like, what the roster looks like in a couple of days, Lewis. Eichenberg is not the backup center. I'm just telling you that right now. They're going to do some. There's no game right now, therefore
he's the backup.
He will not be the backup center.
He's the backup.
They're not taking that chance.
I remember a time not too awful long ago where Richie Incognito was the center for the Dolphins.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
like at all.
Yeah, I don't remember the game, but
it was like part
hurt.
of one game that they had to throw him in there.
And
and they had to throw. I remember that. Holy crap! I remember that. That was funny. He did all right. He wasn't terrible. He snapped it better than Connor Williams does.
Matthias says Armstead was left tackle. Little was right. Yeah, that's
correct.
right.
Yeah, he's correct.
But Von Miller rushes from the left side.
Yeah.
Often.
He rushes against the right tackle.
And the Bills. Remember, the Bills under Leslie Frazier are one of those teams that have like static positions, and they used to have Gregory Rousseau rush blind side and Von Miller rush strong side.
Well, Leslie Frazier's not there anymore, though. So,
yeah, their head coach now is going to run their defense, I guess. Interesting.
So, is there anything else?
How funny? They said Franklin Stubb says he loves how they gave him a David Davis an injury settlement, which is awesome. Did you guys see what happened with the Browns today?
No.
They wished the guy a happy birthday, and like a few tweets later, they cut him.
That's very Brown-like.
Yeah,
that's cold. Oh, Desmond King, your guy, Alf.
Yeah, Alf.
He was starting. He was on first team the whole way through, and then the Raiders said "Hasta la bye bye." What do you?
Oh, it's the Texans. The
Texans. Excuse me. I guess I'm used to it as a Raider.
I don't get that one. Like, he's a former All-Pro and he's young.
Didn't he land with the Dolphins at one point?
No.
Who am I thinking of?
I'm not sure.
What is it? He was in the secondary. I think he and he used to be a Raider. He was a first-round draft pick, I think.
Oh, you're thinking Damon Arnett?
Damon Arnett. That's who I'm thinking of. I'm sorry.
Nice pull, Chris. Good work. I had no idea who Lewis.
I think Duke was all over that guy at one point.
When he said Raiders first round pick, I knew who you were talking about at that point because he was the only first round guy or whatever that the Dolphins picked up anytime recently in that type of way.
Weren't you and the other guys on FinSup are looking at Damon Arnett back when he was coming out?
Maybe I don't remember what draft that was right off the top of my head, but I'm sure I liked somebody else.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up, boys.
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty much done.
Yeah. Although I will say this, you asked me about Desmond King. He's exclusively a slot player. But if they're gonna go get a slot guy, they already worked out Bryce Callahan, and he makes infinitely much more sense because he's played in Fangio's system forever and played it really, really well. Desmond King, who knows what the hell's going on with him? Because he's gone from first team All Pro to steadily, getting himself out of the league. So, I would look for Bryce Callahan. Like, look, they have those 3 spots tomorrow. That's going to be an interesting 3 spots to fill.
For sure. Alrighty. Any final thoughts before we call it a show? Because next week we're going to have, I guess, pregame, kind of, because we're going to have the first game of the season.
Eichenberg will not be the backup center.
He will be
Final
the backup
answer.
He will be the
Final answer, Lewis. Come week 1, he will not be the backup center.
Alf, will he be the backup center?
Be the tiebreaker.
As of right now, he's the backup center.
No. Come week 1, when we start the game, will Eichenberg be the backup center?
I think so. I think that, because I don't know if they're going to be able to pawn him off to anybody else.
Chris.
But I will say this. I don't know if you guys have been reading any Charger stuff. But they're freaking out over their offensive line. So good news in that regard.
I think Eichenberg will be the backup center in the sense that if they do bring someone in, they may want to give him time to get up to speed. So he may be the backup center week 1. But if they do bring in somebody else who can play center by week 2, he's the backup.
You're hedging your bet, Duke. You're basically saying, they'll bring someone in, but Eichenberg will still be week 1.
What Chris said made sense, but I still don't think it's true, but I think it makes the most sense.
Uh-huh.
Well, my final thought is to go back to what y'all were talking about with the player that fans want to hate. I don't think it'll be a player. The person that everyone wants to hate is Chris Greer.
Oh, yeah, because they didn't get Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, it's not. I mean,
I don't think it's
hate Irsay for being an idiot.
They're going. It's not just that. It's everything. It doesn't matter what that guy does. If he got Jonathan Taylor, he overspent. If he didn't get Jonathan Taylor, he didn't spend enough.
He was sleeping. He's sleepy Greer.
Yeah,
he wouldn't wake up.
So
they get ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just that's the guy they're always going to pick on him. Now, if the Dolphins go deep in the playoffs this year, that'll quieten down a little bit. But
no, then they'll say that Jonathan Taylor would have gotten them over the hump, and it's their fault for not trading for him earlier.
Exactly.
All right. We're gonna go ahead.
What you're saying is that Dolphin fans will find a way to be unhappy no matter what.
Especially the ones on Twitter or X.
It's Twitter.
I could see it now. I could see it now. Dolphins win the Super Bowl, and like a week later, well, maybe not a week later. A week later, they would have already had the parade. Like right after the parade, I could see Dolphin fans on Twitter talking about, this was a fluke. They're not going to repeat.
Exactly.
I mean, there are not a whole lot of teams that can, so that's a reasonable. A reasonable.
I had a guy that I was talking to, and I was like, "What? Like, I don't understand this line of thinking." Where they're like, "Yeah, they're building this team. If they win a Super Bowl, but cool, they could win a Super Bowl this year, but it's not sustainable. I want to be competing for Super Bowls for the next 4 or 5 years." And I'm like, "This is the problem with Madden, okay?" Madden has created this for people. If you win a Super Bowl, can you be happy about it and not worry about the next 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, and so I think there's not a lot of teams. I think the Chiefs and the Patriots, in the last 20 years, are the only teams that have made made the playoffs more than 4 consecutive years in a row. If the Bills make it this year, I think they will join that group. I think it's not just Madden, but we look at the Patriots and how they dominated for so long. But I think people have to realize, look at the rest of the AFC East when the Patriots were dominating. I mean, we were just garbage teams. They had 6 easy wins pretty much every year. Now it's different. I mean, the AFC is a gauntlet. The NFC is wide open. You have the Eagles, the 49ers, and then that's whoever else you want to pick. There's lots of room there, but the AFC is just horrendous. You've got the best quarterback in the game. This division it's got 3 very good quarterbacks, and I don't care what you say. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is falling off, but he's still a good quarterback.
Yeah, he's still one of the best throwers of the football in league history.
And you've got possibly all 4 teams in the AFC North could be very good. The AFC West has a couple of good quarterbacks.
And Jacksonville's going to be a really good team. They may be the lone standing team in that division, but
but then you've got 2 teams that have rookie quarterbacks that, if they reach their potential, could be very, very good teams. So, I mean, you're looking at possibly 3 years from now, the AFC will have 10 to 11 teams that are very talented, and some of them won't make the playoffs despite being playoff caliber teams.
Teams always have. There's always teams that don't meet expectations, right? Yeah. Even when there's not a gauntlet, there's teams that don't.
So when the Patriots were dominating all those years, I mean, you had, the Dolphins and their, carousel of quarterbacks, and the Bills sucked and the Jets sucked and all that stuff. So it's like, yeah, they had an easy road to get the division. So it's not a realistic thing to expect a dynasty like that anymore. I will take a 3-year window to win a Super Bowl, and if Miami gets one in there, I'm content with that.
A couple teams that have kind of done it the way it's more realistic. I'm going to name 2 teams, and they're both in the same division. The Eagles and the Giants. Like, look at those teams over the past, 20 years. How many times have they had periods where they were really good, where they went to conference championships or went to Super Bowl or won Super Bowl? And then they would eventually kind of fall down a little bit. They had to kind of maneuver the roster. They'd lose some guys. They had to pay some guys. So they had to cut some, release some guys, and they kind of go, but then they would start to kind of build it back up again and then get to a Super Bowl. And then it would that's what the Giants and the Eagles have done. That's more the realistic version of what it looks like. Not what New England did, and not even what Kansas City's doing right now. Kansas City's doing that because they have 2 guys that make that happen. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. We have neither. No other teams have those guys. So our best hope is that we build it up here in these next few years, and we're really good and hopefully get to a Super Bowl. Then maybe it kind of, you have to maneuver the roster a bit, but you still have Tua, and hopefully Tua ends up being the guy. And then in a few years later, you kind of build it back up again and get it going again. That's the hope, right? Is that you end up one of those teams. That's the more realistic. So I agree with you completely, Chris, that's more realistic. We've been spoiled off of watching guys like, oh, we want to be the Patriots. Well, man, there's only one Patriots ever, right? So yeah, that's not going to happen.
All righty. I guess we'd say that we're go ahead and ready to go. For everybody, thank you for listening. We really appreciate you having us here. We're going to go ahead and just mention one more time that, as always, You Break Wheel Fix is the place to go to get your wheels fixed up, or if you need to give your ride a new look, 305-748-0112 is the number to call. And, of course, go to PricePicks.com, use that promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Flex Friday will be coming up before you know it. You can potentially win some big-time cash there. And, of course, there is a free Dak Prescott prop that you should absolutely take advantage of. All he has to do is throw for 1 single yard, and you will automatically win that square. So go in there, use your promo code 5, and put up your $100. They'll give you $100 for you to play with right then and there. I just want to go ahead and thank Ron. Thank you, Duke. Thank you, Alf, for being on as usual. And we will see you all next week for another episode of the Pulse of Fins Nation.